What did the quiet kid in school do that surprised everyone? Got a tattoo beginning of senior year. Man, what a badass. Most of us 17-year-olds were highly impressed the quiet kid could do something so baller, until we realized the tattoo was a name in big black letters down his arm. A name. His name, in fact. He got his own first name tattooed down his arm, as if he was in danger of forgetting it. We had a psychology class that included a disorder day, where we had to pick a disorder and act it out the whole day, to show us how awful and tiring it was to actually experience them. Unbeknownst to all of us, the quiet girl picked kleptomania. In psychology that day, we were allowed to stop acting out what we did and relate our experiences to each other. When asked how her day was, she opened her backpack and took out a clock, 6 whiteboard markers, a teacher's NAMA tag, and a fire extinguisher. We were all a bit in awe. He was getting dressed down by our asshole of a pet coach, and full on punched him across the face. Coach dropped like a sack of potatoes. This one girl in my 7th grade English class was the quiet one. We had a school talent show in January and she sang Total Eclipse of the Heart. Blew us all away. That girl can sing. The quiet kid at my school sat in our English class and started biting his arm until it bled. Raised his hand, and when the teacher asked what he wanted he said that he was a vampire and promptly started licking his fresh wound before running out of the classroom. Came back 20 minutes later and acted like nothing had happened. So I took some history class, civics and economics I think, and there was this quiet kid that I'd known for a few years but never really heard talk before. We all broke up into different groups and made political parties for a project, and each class would have a party nominated to give a speech in front of the whole school. So this kid went up in front of a school who had never heard him talk before and gave a goddamn flawless 10-minute speech. Never heard anything like it, and he won with a landslide. He threw the biggest prom after party that anyone could imagine. He lived on a farm and had a huge area of land in the back. Some of the popular kids set up a Facebook event for a prom after party as a joke and put his address. At first he freaked out because over 300 people said they were going to attend. But goddamn did Davy Jones ever deliver. What a legend. Straight out of Project X. He shit a log legit the size of the average adult's forearm. We knew it was him because he was the last person to leave the bathroom before we found it, and he was limping. Caught a goose. Put the neck of the goose through the spokes of his bike and broke its neck by spinning the wheel. 7th grade. He had a breakdown in the middle of language arts class. He stood up and hurled a desk across the room, probably not that far actually, but to my 12-year-old brain it was a long way, and started clawing at his own arm and drew blood and was crying really hard. I don't remember what had happened right before it, if anything. My teacher was really calm though. She said, "Why don't the rest of you go wait quietly in the hall so that kid and I can talk?" The rest of us were completely freaked out, so we did that. And one girl had the foresight to go to a nearby classroom and inform the teacher there of what was going on. That teacher called the counseling office and the 7th grade counselor came jogging over and went into the classroom with kid and our teacher. We couldn't hear much, except kid yelling, crying unintelligibly. And after a few minutes counselor came out and told us to go to the library for the remainder of the period. Kid was out for a week after that, and Ms. teacher explained that he'd been going through a rough time recently. After that he went back to being his usual reclusive self from what I noticed. I was the quiet kid. Got picked on every single day by this one kid. One day I got so sick of it and punched him in the side of his head about on the ear, and everyone stared at him waiting for him to do something. He just walked away. Made me feel good. Have 50k follower on Instagram. He was quiet and also the wimpy kid who got picked last for sports teams. Turned up to the 10-year class reunion as a massively ripped bodybuilder dude with a trophy wife. The quiet kid in our school made a hit list. He wrote down every person he didn't like in our grade and planned to hurt them in some form or another and sent the list to a friend of his who turned it into the office. He was forever banned from attending school events or going near the school. He was forced to be homeschooled. The shyest kid at our school was so shy that he'd cry when teachers called on him to state his opinion on a matter. Years later, now he is a somewhat successful rapper, and I've heard that he kills it when he performs live on stages. Got pregnant. She was 15 at the time. Was giving his presentation, and his poster keeps falling down due to weak magnets. Eventually just says duck it out loud and moves on. Came into class without his shirt on, hammered. Then he was later arrested for rolling around in the library drunk. Pissed his pants when he was 16. Poor thing never lived that down. Gnashed his teeth and bit the recess lady's breast. And then one time he hit me with a surprise left that hurt my jaw. I can't even put into words what he ended up doing. It was so shocking. Walked around the playground with his arms folded inside his shirt to look like a T-Rex arms and making the associated sounds. We proceeded to shoot him with our Styx laser blaster and throw our pine cone grenades at him. Looking back, he was probably the quiet kid because of us. Whoa, my username has never been more relevant. I am that weird quiet kid. So there was this guy, stereotypical jock, Linebacker on the HS football team. Yada yada, who bullied me every single day. From the day we first met in 7th grade to my senior year of high school. Called me a lesbian. Asked when I was gonna shoot up the school. Threw food at me, etc. Senior year, one day we are walking past each other in the cafeteria and he goes, "Ai, Witquitone. Whose PSS why did you lick today?" And I just lost it. I was done. I punched him dead in his nose. I got suspended several days. He came back to school with 2 black eyes. And no one ducked with me again. Honestly, I should have stood up for myself and punched him sooner. I'm late to this party, but what the heck? There was this quiet kid who got picked on a lot in gym class. During dodgeball, he always got the brunt of the hits. One day, a ball happened to find its way to his junk. The coach called him out for that hit, and he went over to the prison. An asshole jock, famous for some past issues, asked him, "How do your nuts feel now, man?" in a sneering, condescending tone. He replied, "I don't know. How did yours feel after they made a kid when you were 15? Jock was shocked and silent, and the rest of the kids stood up wide-eyed and drop-jawed. I was the quite always sleeping kid. The chemical teacher asked me a question on something that she didn't teach yet, probably to show how much I was missing by sleeping. What she and the rest of the class didn't expect was me giving a detailed answer. Everyone went quiet and the teacher said something like, I didn't expect you to know any of that." Jenny used to scrape the perpetual scab on the top of her head onto her desk, brush the scab into her hand off of her desk, and eat the scabs. To quiet kids at my school, one of them has something called selective mutism. The other is a good friend of mine, but is still fairly quiet. First kid apparently unloaded a huge shit on the floor of the boys' toilets, but I never saw that. The other kid apparently shat in a bin at his old school. We also had a kid with selective mutism, but he was a super ducking cool guy. If you sat in the back of the room with him and talked really quietly, sometimes he would talk back. I go to a magnet school and the quiet kid from a few years ago was, or maybe still is, on the FBI top 10 most wanted. Given it's a magnet school, you'd think hacking or something cool, but nope, he is wanted for CP. He's a radio show host, interviewer and DJ for wedding receptions. Talking has become his specialty. I was super quiet in school, and it always blew people's minds when they found out I played hockey and rode motorcycles. People only found out when I came to school in a wheelchair with a broken pelvis from crashing my dirt bike at the sand dunes. I'm the quiet kid in this story. During band practice, one of the rich kids in my section started chucking pine cones at me. When he continued, after I told him to knock it off, I put him on a chokehold, then punched him in the back of the head. My best friend was also in percussion section and described it as a deafening crack, and could tell by the kid's face that he had felt pain despite his insistence that I hit like a bitch. He never ducked with me after that. He would hit on any girl. When in 6th grade he would sit and sharpen pencils with his teeth. He was quiet ever since middle school. Once we moved on to high school, he was dressing in a black trench coat, carrying a Walmart radio, and wearing finger gloves. We thought he was a drug dealer, but no, he just sold power elixirs, which is sriracha hot sauce mixed with Gatorade in an Lenmia flask. He'd also run to class, like they run in Naruto. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.